Minister, you said there today that the new dairy beef welfare scheme is going to open in March. How is this going to look, this scheme, for farmers?
Well, listen, we're engaging in finalising the detail around it. Obviously, we want it to be as supportive as possible for farmers in relation to supporting the continued development of the dairy beef sector. We're seeing a massive transition within dairy beef and work happening within dairy farms in relation to ensuring that the calves that are coming off the dairy herd have beef merits. And it's crucial that we drive that on and make that happen in a way that every calf has a beef value. Significant improvement is coming about as a result of the adoption of sex semen. Last year, 20% of all AI straws that were used were sex semen. That's remarkable progress. We need to see that continue. And part of the idea today and part of the idea of launching this consultation on the dairy beef strategy is making sure that we see that progress, because once the calf leaves the dairy farm, and we want it to be healthy and strong, but I want to see the beef farmer that buys that make money off it and for it to be really profitable for them.
And a bit of positive news this week, Minister. Obviously, Irish beef has been granted market access back to China. When can we see Irish beef back on the shelves in China, do you think?
Well, as of yesterday, beef can get going. So listen, I put a massive effort into this along with the team in the Department of Agriculture to make sure that we would get a quick resumption. And it was also worked very closely across government to make this a key priority. And it was really good then yesterday with the Prime Minister of China visiting for that meeting between himself and the Taoiseach at Prime Minister level to have this as the key outcome of the Prime Minister of China's visit to Ireland. So as of yesterday now, the 22 factories in this country which are registered with the Chinese authorities previously can resume beef exports, and I've no doubt they're looking to kick off and make that happen quickly. We got beef access originally back in 2018, and this is the second time since we got beef access that has been stopped as a result of the requirement in the protocol that where there's an atypical case of BSE, the export is to temporarily stop until it's agreed that it resumes. Of the 70 countries that we have export protocols with, China is the only country that has that requirement. And the last time this happened, it took 2.5 years to get beef resumed, and that didn't resume until last April. So it was crucial that whenever this happened again, we didn't see the same thing happen. So as opposed to the 2.5 years it took last time, this has been delivered in 2.5 months. And I think that's really important for the continued investment and development of the Chinese market, because we have very strict testing regime in this country for atypical BSE. It means that we capture anything that is caught as strict as among any countries, but that means that every case that is there, and this happens sporadically in every 20 or 30 million cattle, that means that on average you'll have a case like this every 3 or 4 years. So you can't have a situation where you build a sustainable market long term if it's going to be you're going to be out for a year or two every 3-4 years. So the fact that we're back in 2.5 months is important, and we worked hard, and I made sure that this important agriculture issue was a cross-government priority, and thankfully we got the outcome we wanted then yesterday. And again, it's important, it shows the importance of working cross-government, because when we did the cross-government visit to South Korea 2 months ago, which is the first time we've done a cross-government multi-ministers visiting one country at the one time, in many years, again, we made sure agriculture was front and center of that visit. And that worked, because the meeting I had then with the South Korean agriculture minister, he promised that he would move it on by Christmas as a result of that meeting we had. And that emphasis we put on as a government by all of us, so many of us going there, including the Taoiseach, in the one go, led to that success story. And it was the most, I think, significant thing coming out of the South Korean visit as well. And I'm hopeful now that over the course of this year, we'll see access to that really important South Korean market as well. And this all comes back then to making sure we have the markets for our beef farmers and for family farm income, making sure that we're maximising the value of it, and every possible avenue is available to sell Irish cattle.
Minister, a recent fodder survey on Agriland showed 1/3 of farmers are concerned about fodder supplies. Is the department concerned about this, and what are they doing?
As you know, this is something I've monitored very closely over the full term of my ministry, because I very much have the memory of not so many years ago, very challenging springs and early summers indeed, whereby we had fodder crisis and a lack of fodder. I was particularly worried as a result of the war in Ukraine and the impact it had in relation to high cost of making silage and that potentially impacting on silage production. And I wanted to avoid that, so I introduced fodder schemes last year and the year before with €1,000 per farm to drive on and support the cost of making silage, so we'd have the supplies in the country. I think that has worked well, and farmers responded very strongly by making the silage and making sure the stocks were kept up. We obviously always have to be very much aware then of monitoring the situation. I put in place almost just over the last 2 years the National Fodder Committee, monitoring fodder security committee under the chairmanship of Mike McCann, with Chuggusk and all of the key stakeholders then and farm representatives passed through that. So they've been monitoring the situation. I've been in touch and asked them if they would meet again in the next week to monitor and get an assessment and communicate where we're at. But also really importantly then to communicate any actions that need to be taken at farm level over the next 2-3 months to make sure that every farmer has the right advice to be able to work our way through the next few months. Because we never know what's ahead. We never know if cattle are going to be out of grass at the end of February in some, or early February in some parts of the country, mid-February, or whether it could be, as it happened in a couple of occasions in at the end of the last decade, it was late May before animals were out in many parts of the country. You never know, so you have to manage and have contingencies in place. So that fodder committee is going to continue and do that work, really important work, and be meeting next week.
Yeah, and Minister, we're seeing outbreaks of Bluetongue across the UK and some countries on mainland Europe. Is there a concern about Bluetongue outbreaks in Ireland, and what are the department doing to prevent this?
Yeah, well, the department are monitoring that very closely. Obviously, we've very strict protocols in place in relation to testing of any animals that comes into the country and monitoring the situation very closely. It's very worrying to see, and it's disappointing to see that happen in the south coast of England there over the last number of months. But the department have every control possible in place to make sure that we're secure.
And just background, I suppose, to today's event, what more can be done from the department to support beef farmers to rear calves? We've seen there today there's a high attrition rate in the number of farmers who are rearing calves. I suppose, what can the department do more to encourage more farmers to rear these dairy beef calves?
Well, things like today is important, but I mean, providing the leadership on this issue to make sure that the quality, make sure there's money in it. That's the first thing. And I mean, we're showing that where good practice is adopted, that it can be done profitably. And Chuggusk, through their Dairy Beef 500 program, are showing that and providing leadership around that. And I, as a minister, am funding them in that work. And also then today, providing the leadership again by bringing every key stakeholder, and the great turnout here from farm leaders today, to everybody in the beef sector, to work on that. And we're making great progress. And I see further progress ahead, and I'll provide the leadership around that to make sure that we're driving that on as fast as we can, as best we can, and in a way that delivers a bottom line profitability for farmers that are becoming new to it, and those that are in it already.
Minister, can you give a commitment that no funding will be taken from suckler farmers to support dairy beef calf rearing?
Absolutely. This is not an either or. I want to see the suckler sector strengthen and be an anchor of our national beef sector. And I've followed through in that in terms of the supports that I'm delivering for the suckler sector. My commitment coming out of opposition, going into government, was to deliver €200 per cow. That has been delivered both last year and again this year in terms of the schemes that have been in place. And the anchor scheme there is the SCEP, the Suckler Carbon Efficiency Scheme, which replaced the BDGP, and the proof of the pudding is in the funds and the money I've put in the pot. Under the BDGP, which was in place up to 12 months ago, the first 10 cows was paid at €90 and the remainder of €80. The scheme I have in place then last year saw €150 on the first 23 cows and €120 on the rest. That's a reflection of the support that's there, and that's something we want to build on, and I want to support the suckler sector in every way possible. But alongside that, I don't want to see any poor beef calves coming off the dairy herd. We have a very good and a wonderful dairy sector in this country, but every dairy cow is producing a calf. I want that calf to make money for the beef farmer that actually takes it on, and it to be profitable for them. So I want to get rid of the situation where we have dairy and dairy bull calves because we're not seeing the fast adoption of sex semen. I want every calf that's coming off that's not a replacement for the dairy herd to be a good merit beef calf that can be profitable, and that makes sense, and that's what today is very much about.
And finally, Minister, is there any update on the acres payments, and when can farmers expect to receive them?
So every week at the moment we're continuing to roll out the payment. Obviously, listen, everyone on the team was disappointed last year that despite our best efforts, we didn't manage to get both the cooperation payments significantly paid as well as the general payments. We had about 18,000 paid in December in the general stream. Obviously, it goes back to the decision I made last year to accept every single applicant in. So it meant we had 46,000 acres farmers right across the country. That put a lot of pressure then on in relation to actually getting those payments out. But I didn't want anybody to miss out last year and not be able to be in acres this year. I also wanted to get them paid for last year's work in December. Unfortunately, it's going to be February before those in the cooperation stream get paid. But the team is working really hard on it. We're continuing to pay every week in those in the general stream, and we hope to get as many as possible then in the cooperation stream paid in February.
Minister, thank you very much.